Pay close attention to this surveillance playback. The man, visibly consumed by agitation and pointing a handgun, is Vincent Calibbras, a 38-year-old auto mechanic. The woman backing away from the barrel of the weapon is Dr. Patricia Holloway, a respected 41-year-old cardiac surgeon. Minutes later, right here on the lawn of her exclusive La Jolla home, the man with the gun would forever change the trajectory of both of their files. At 7:07 a.m. on December 28, 1999, a frantic 911 call ripped through the quiet affluence of La Jolla. A neighbor reported the sound of gunfire, followed by the sight of a woman lying motionless on the lawn. She described the shooter, a man who made no attempt to flee. He simply turned and walked away from the scene with a cold, deliberate pace. Police units mobilized for a manhunt that was already over. The suspect wasn't hiding, but what detectives found waiting for them was somehow far more unsettling. Dr. Patricia Holloway was, by every metric, a towering success, a highly respected cardiothoracic surgeon at Mercy General Hospital, commanding a six-figure salary. She had built a pristine reputation rooted in elite education and the backing of her affluent family. Her personal life reflected this success: a multi-million-dollar home, luxury cars, and a social calendar full of the city's elite. Her career was her world. However, beneath the polished surface of her professional file, investigators uncovered a well-documented operational flaw. Hospital records and patient feedback, later scrutinized, revealed a distinct and troubling pattern. While private, wealthy patients received lengthy, attentive consultations, those relying on public assistance programs reported an entirely different experience. They described Dr. Holloway as cold, dismissive, and impatient. Consultations were often cut short, questions brushed aside. This was not merely poor bedside manner. It was a consistent bias that separated her patients by their financial worth. In late 1998, that sterile world of privilege was about to violently collide with a family who had nothing but each other. The patient was Rosa Calibbras, a 67-year-old widow and Italian immigrant. Her son, Vinny Calibbras, a quiet 38-year-old auto mechanic, had centered his life around her care. He dedicated himself to researching doctors and translating the complex medical data for his mother. On January 12, 1999, Vinny witnessed the clear division firsthand. He watched the doctor spend nearly 45 minutes with a well-dressed couple. When the Calibbras family was finally called in, the atmosphere changed instantly. Their consultation lasted only 11 minutes. Dr. Holloway avoided eye contact with Rosa and met Vinny's questions about risks with a curt, dismissive response. "It's routine." He left with a profound sense of unease. He had seen the difference in care, but with the life-saving surgery scheduled, he pushed his doubts aside. On the morning of March 15, 1999, Rosa Calibbras was admitted. Dr. Holloway, delayed after attending a charity gala, began the surgery at 8:15 a.m. Then, at 9:52 a.m., the first critical error occurred. According to the subsequent investigation, Dr. Holloway miscalculated the prosthetic valve size and forced the oversized replacement into position. Shortly after, while suturing, she nicked the left coronary artery. This severe repairable mistake was not addressed in time. At 10:34 a.m., alarms sounded. By 11:03 a.m., Rosa Calibbras was pronounced dead on the operating table. 30 minutes later, Dr. Holloway entered the waiting room where Vinny sat alone. The conversation, later documented by Vinny, lasted less than 2 minutes. The surgeon was clinical and showed no emotion. She offered no apology, only stating that these things happen. She turned and walked away, leaving Vinny with nothing but the devastating finality of loss. Vinny's isolation shattered when a final, cold insult arrived: a hospital bill for $87,600 for the procedure that had killed his mother. His grief instantly hardened into suspicion. Frustrated, Vinny used his small savings to hire an attorney, demanding the complete unedited case file for external review. That answer arrived on May 14th in the form of an independent expert's report. The findings were damning and unequivocal. Rosa's death was preventable. The operative report showed clear surgical error, proving Vinny's deepest fears. His mother's death was not an accident. It was an inexcusable mistake. Armed with this report, Vinny filed a malpractice lawsuit. The response was immediate and aggressive. Dr. Holloway's high-powered legal team buried him in motions and technicalities. In a deposition, she showed no remorse, stating the procedure was performed to the standard of care. The system began to systematically dismantle his case. The hospital offered a $75,000 settlement, which would barely cover his debt, conditioned on Vinny signing an agreement that no wrongdoing had occurred. Defeated and financially drained, Vinny accepted. After all legal fees were paid, he was left with just over $8,000. The system had delivered its final, insulting verdict. No justice, no accountability, and no closure. The failed lawsuit was the breaking point. With no legal recourse, Vinny spiraled into an isolating depression. His world was now consumed by a singular, burning obsession: Dr. Patricia Holloway. Driven by a feeling of profound powerlessness, he began driving to La Jolla. He would park for hours, watching her expensive life continue without interruption. To Vinny, every light on in her house was a symbol of the injustice he had suffered. On December 13, 1999, that anger took a concrete, lethal form. Vinny purchased a Glock 17 9mm handgun. With no criminal history, the background check cleared instantly. He left the store with the weapon. He was no longer observing, he was preparing. In the following week, his actions became methodical. His surveillance shifted from aimless observation to data collection. He documented her routine, her runs at 6:45 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursday, her return times. On the night of December 27th, his plan was fully formed. He wrote 2 letters. The first, a 14-page detailed account of his mother's death and the system's indifference, addressed to whoever finds this. The second, a personal note to his mother's grave. He had the weapon, the routine, and the final explanation. On the morning of Tuesday, December 28th, Vinny parked his truck and walked the remaining distance. At 7:02 a.m., Dr. Holloway exited for her run. Vinny stepped out to confront her. When he identified himself as Rosa Calibbras' son, Holloway's annoyance turned to dismissiveness, telling him the matter was settled. That cold disregard was the final, fatal trigger. CCTV footage captured the next 2 minutes. Dr. Holloway, in a final, fatal miscalculation, reportedly offered him money. For Vinny, this was never about money. It was about a life that had been devalued. At 7:06:40 a.m., Vincent Calibbras fired 3 shots. 2 struck her chest. For a moment, he stood over her. Then, as a neighbor screamed into a 911 call, he turned and walked, not ran, back the way he came. Minutes later, police located his truck nearby. He surrendered without resistance. His first words to the arresting officers were direct and without emotion. "I did it. I killed her. She killed my mother and nobody cared." The lead detectives had video, a weapon, and a full confession. It should have been a simple case, but when Detective Mendoza executed the search warrant, the case file changed forever. On the kitchen table, she found the 14-page letter he had left behind. It was not the rambling of a madman. It was a methodical, heartbreakingly detailed account of his mother's death, the cold dismissal by the hospital, and the crushing weight of a justice system that had ignored him. The killer in her custody was also a victim of a system failure. Vinny Calibbras' trial became a flashpoint for public debate on where justice truly lies. The prosecution argued premeditation. The defense argued voluntary manslaughter, presenting evidence of the hospital's negligence. Vinny himself testified, "My mother died because a doctor didn't think she was important enough to care about." The jury returned a verdict that satisfied no one: guilty of second-degree murder. They acknowledged the provocation but could not condone the act, sentencing him to 15 years to life. The legacy of the case was complicated. The case became a chilling example of how easily individuals can be failed by the very institutions designed to protect them. After nearly 25 years, Vinny Calibbras was finally released. He now volunteers, helping families like his own navigate the same system that first broke him. The file on Vinnie Calibbras is finally closed. What systemic failure is hidden in the next case? Subscribe to File Unzipped.